Hey guys, I'm Rachel Castile and welcome to Typology Corner. Today I'm going to talk about the Enneagram, just a complete overview video on what is the Enneagram, like what is it tracking, all the different parts of it, my journey in discovering the Enneagram and how much it's helped me, and yeah, just an overall picture of our personalities, our coping mechanisms, trauma responses, all these things in childhood that very much influenced um, how we respond to the world around us. Um, yeah, kind of what's guiding us. What are the things we're avoiding? The Enneagram really is tracking like childhood beliefs that shaped um, the way we saw ourselves, saw other people. It's tracking um, kind of like the core needs that are driving each one of the types. So the Enneagram is made up of 9 distinct personality types. They line them out around a circle with 9 at the top and then 1 coming all the way around to 9. So there are 9 core types. And they're kind of grouped in different ways. There are, out of the 9, there are 3 different groups. They call them triads with 3 different core issues. So we've got the emotion of anger, fear, and shame. And 3 primarily are rooted in each of those areas, which makes up the total of the 9. And I've got some pretty good like diagrams I'm going to show in a little while that will also help to kind of piece all this together and see it. But so let's start with just what is the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a geometric figure that maps out the 9 fundamental personality types of human nature and their complex interrelationships. So yes, the types are interrelated, as you're going to see. The word Enneagram comes from the Greek word ennea, which means 9, and then the Greek word grammos, which means figure. So it is a 9-pointed figure. So I'll go on and show you, let's see, this image. So this is a book that is just really, really good. There's lots of Enneagram books, but this one really has kind of encapsulated what I love most about it, just the guide to waking up. Because the real concept of the Enneagram is that your personality type is not you, but we have, grown accustomed to a way of being, and we identify with the vantage point that we're living from. But really, the Enneagram is tracking how we really have gone to sleep to who we really are and have fallen into these patterns that have become normal to us. We were using these coping mechanisms in childhood and have carried those on into our adult life and are kind of on autopilot. And the Enneagram is really helping people to recognize those unconscious things that they're doing, and in seeing yourself clearly, you can choose to like break out of it. You can choose to wake up and not be defined by it anymore. So that's very much the like core thing of the Enneagram, is about waking up to who you really are, to discover who you really are, by first snapping out of who you think you are, right? So who we think we are doesn't sum up the reality of our potential, and which does require us to wake up from certain things that are holding us back. And at the core of it, yeah, a lot of things that say occurred in childhood we weren't responsible for, but now we are responsible for how we are reacting and what we taught ourselves and how to handle things that very well could be limiting us now in our present. So, yeah, so that's a general picture. I've taken notes from, so I'll show you this from this book, as well as here's another really good book. These are like just wealths of information, and I'm still reading through these, and I have a lot of other Enneagram books too, but I do highly recommend these. They have just really great charts and stuff, and really, really awesome information in here. But yeah, so the Enneagram Guide to Waking Up, and then the Wisdom of the Enneagram by Hudson and Rizzo, and this is Beatrice Chestnut and Uranio Pius, I think you say his name. So yeah, so I'm going to read a bit of an excerpt from the Guide to Waking Up. So the Enneagram helps us to wake up to ourselves by revealing the habitual patterns and blind spots that limit our growth and transformation. To wake up from this state, we must confront our ego as well as the shadow cast by the ego. We need to become aware of the automatic habits that structure our defense ego persona, as well as all that remains unconscious in us, connected to our ego's need to protect itself. When we don't see and own the unconscious tendencies connected to the personality we stay focused on and are limited by, we are held hostage to who we think we are, or who we fear we are, or who we would like to be. When we move beyond the ego and actively engage in the process of growth that the Enneagram maps out for us, we begin to awaken to our full potential. This is it's kind of a lot of reading, but it's really good core foundational things for what is the Enneagram, what is the purpose of this. And as we get into exploring the actual types, you will see the root of this and everything else that we explore. So I'm going to continue to read. This is more from the Waking Up book. So we each come into the world as a unique and authentic self. As dependent children, however, we adopt survival strategies to help us adapt to our environment. You and your personality are not the same thing. Our personalities helps us survive childhood, but limit our conscious awareness of who we can be in adulthood. Our need to survive in the world causes us to develop false selves that stand in place of our true selves. We become trapped in this invisible habitual patterns, and it becomes difficult to grow beyond them as they become more deeply ingrained. As we become more comfortable with these strategies, we descend deeper and deeper into a zombie state without even knowing it. The Enneagram helps us to understand how the survival strategies we develop early in life can turn us into zombies later in life. We must become aware of our zombie-like state and then actively work against it in order to rise above it. We must engage in intentional, conscious inner work to awaken from the trance we enter when we think we are our personality. We must continually remind ourselves to be more present and attuned to our moment-to-moment experiences to overcome the deeply rooted habits of the ego. So, yeah, that is like the core of the Enneagram. And so my journey with the Enneagram, as you're going to see, I'm going to talk about these types, but I discovered that I'm a type 2, the helper. And as you look into the needs, they all can be summarized by a particular need. So the 2 is the need to be needed. So they're called like the helper, the giver. So in a sense, having like the core need to be needed, to have a sense of value to other people, you wind up giving, but finding your value in that other people are receiving something from you, that you're being helpful in a sense. So that's just an example from me, that, if the further you go into the pattern of your Enneagram type, the more disconnected you could become from like a real place of rest in yourself without having to do that. So yeah, there's like a core childhood lie essentially to each type that kind of says something. It's like something that you believed as a child, and the two, their childhood like message is, it's not okay to have my own needs. So you're kind of going and meeting other people's needs, but not mentioning your own needs or forgetting your own needs, and not letting someone else help, or yeah, to meet my needs, but being out meeting other people's needs. That's kind of the concept. So that's just an example of Enneagram type 2, and coming into a healthier place of not getting worth and value from that pattern, so from there, I'm going to show some charts here. So this is a lot of information, but this is just a picture of what the 9 types look like. And then I'm also going to introduce you to the 3 triads, which is demonstrated in the bottom left corner: the instinctual center, the thinking center, and the feeling center. Those centers are also related to a particular root emotion, kind of a core issue of the types, like an emotion that they're most rooted in. So let's go up to the types. So as you can tell, the 9 is at the top. 8, 9, and 1 are in the same anger triad together. They have an instinctual center of like living from the gut. Let's do this. I'm going to explore the types with them all being right there through the lens of the triad. So we can just start with that. So the instinctual triad is the body triad. These 3 types are most in touch with their body sensations, like the gut instinct, the intuition. They're very much focused on like setting boundaries with people in a sense, and they have a core issue with anger. They kind of react to it differently. Type 8 is externalizing anger. Type 9 is repressing it and kind of denying it. Type 1 is internalizing it and kind of pushing it down. So they're all reacting differently, but the core issue is anger or rage in a sense, or frustration, just an overall, like, it's a body type of information that they're most attuned to. They use like control and expression of power and stuff to kind of manage discomforts that they have with other people, and yeah, just kind of where they fit in the world is really around like maintaining resistance to reality, kind of like boundaries, I guess the best way to say it. So yeah, so just think of those top 3 types: 8, 9, and 1. They're in that body instinctual center, like just gut instinct, intuitive knowledge in a sense. So, and then you have the feeling triad, which is the heart triad. These people are the most like connected with their emotions, and yeah, just like the heart, and like about being connected with other people, and relationships is like really important to them. And their core issue is shame. Not having such a well like defined sense of self. They have a sense of like worthlessness in a way, like they don't know their worth, I guess. So they're, with that core issue, they're responding differently to kind of fill that void. And The feeling group is also concerned with self-image. So them being not having such a core identity, they over identify with the image being portrayed to other people than really knowing their value and of like apart from what they're doing or apart from some way that they're differentiating themselves from others. The core thing is like a root of shame that they are kind of managing in their own way. And fear of abandonment is a kind of an unconscious thing that's there. And I personally am in the feeling heart triad. And these people are most focused on relationships and finding value in relationships or in connecting with people. They're most in touch with like the heart and like other people's emotions or their own emotions and yeah, the whole world of feeling. So yeah, it's the feeling center. The types that are in that is the helper, the achiever, and the individualist. Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of talk over how they each respond differently to that. So the 2 is focused primarily on other people's feelings. So they're very in tune with how other people feel, like where just their overall like emotions. They're very much like in tune with other people more so than their own feelings. And then type 3, they are it's kind of a lot of information. But yeah, so type 3, they're called the achiever, and they kind of like set their emotions aside. They're kind of disconnected from their emotions the most. They kind of feel that feelings are messy, and they find value in achieving and in being successful. And yeah, they've kind of pushed their feelings down, or they're not as focused on it, but they are very much in the feeling center. They just disconnect from it, probably more than others. And type 4, they are focused on their own feelings. They've got really intense feelings. They're most identified by their feelings, by their emotions, and probably like the most emotional type on the Enneagram. But yeah, that's just, again, just exploring it in the context of the shame and the feeling center and seeing the types within that. So yeah, the individualists, they're individuating the most. They are finding value in like setting themselves apart and being different. Like they feel the most identified by the shame, by the deeper emotions, and they never feel like they're normal. They never feel like they fit in. So their response to dealing with the shame is like, I'm different. Like they differentiate themselves. The achiever, the 3, is has like a fear of failure. So they always want to appear successful. They're the most disconnected from their core, as in they most identify with the image that they've built. And then the helper is identifying with being helpful to others. So that makes them valuable. So yeah, they all find value in their own way, but they're dealing with the core root issue of shame and are most in touch with their emotions. Yes, so that is a summary of the shame group. Our last group is the thinking center, who has a primary root issue of fear or safety or feeling secure. And type 5, the investigator, the loyalist, and the enthusiast all respond in a different way to somewhat combat or deal with that issue of fear. So yeah, they are primarily concerned with anxiety and fear. They experience like a lack of support is kind of the feeling. They are driven by feeling safe and secure. They are informed through gathering information and wisdom. So they are always on the lookout in their own way to combat the things they're afraid of, to stay feeling safe and secure from whatever dangers that are perceived to them. So the 5, they are constantly gathering information. They are just like the most thinker type, just sifting in information to be in the know on things, and that's their way of dealing with their fears. So type 6, the loyalist, they avoid whatever makes them feel fearful. So they're the most like thinking ahead, thinking 2 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead, thinking of all the things that could go wrong. They're very prepared for all the things. So they're either avoiding danger or pushing through danger. So it depends on, there's different types of 6s. They could be going towards it or ensuring that they never encounter it by planning ahead, seeing ahead, thinking through all the things that could go wrong. And it's automatic for them to be very in touch with that like thinking process. So as you can tell, they're in the thinking center, they're in their head thinking through all the possibilities, and in order to keep themselves safe. 7 is the enthusiast. And their strategy for dealing with fear and to feel secure and safe, they are reframers. They will reframe situations and their fears to see the positive. So it's kind of like avoiding pain by staying positive, staying upbeat, and reframing negative things so that it's how they're managing their anxiety in a sense. So so that's a picture of the thinking type. So as you look, there's 9 types, and they're broken up into the 3 groups. And as you start to associate those, it becomes easier to understand the Enneagram and also to find your core type, the core like root thing that you're dealing with. So just think gut is anger and autonomy. Just think like the instinct groups, they are setting boundaries. They're resisting what's around them in their own way, whether they're doing it explosively, expressing it, disconnecting and going numb. Type 9, the peacemaker, just keeping peace and want to stay comfortable. Type 1, they're a reformer, perfectionist in a sense, and are suppressing their anger, but always refining the things that they don't like about reality. So they're like resisting what reality is and refining it constantly in their own way. The challenger is always challenging what's around them. So it's different ways that they are processing. It's like that guttural instinct in how they deal with things is how they're managing their anger with reality and setting boundaries and like autonomy. So yeah. And then the heart, just remember the heart is associated with shame. And these types are generally seeking attention in some way because they're needing to find their value through something they're doing, which requires getting attention in a way, because it's very much connected to people. It's connected to the people that they're relating with, and connections are a big thing to them, which winds up being somewhat attention seeking in order to forge those relationships, to deal with that core root of like, I don't know who I am. I don't know my worth, my value, or I feel shame about who I am, out of a sense of not having a very defined identity. So then they go out and get attention in certain ways to create an identity, and then over identify with the image built, which helps to manage the root issue of shame. And then the head group are dominantly dealing with fear, which has them up in their head primarily, sifting through information and rationalizing things in order to manage fear so that they can feel secure. Because the big thing, they're not feeling support, or they're not feeling safe in a sense. So they have each in their own way found a way to manage that, to kind of answer that issue of that core anxiety, that core fear root in the thinker type. So yeah. I think those visuals are really helpful as you start to associate them all together and see how they're interrelated. So a few more things I'm going to layer on top of it. So as I was talking about the wings, when you look at the circle, each type has a type right next to it. And so you have your core type, but then you also have a wing, as in you could have traits of the type right next to you, kind of coloring your personality as well. And it's like none of us are just a pure, like, I'm not just a pure 2. I've got 2 and some 3 traits in me too, or 2 and some 1 traits in me too. And they kind of blend together, and you get like kind of like 2 distinct type of 2s that are different from each other, you know? And that's generally the case for all the types. So just know that the way it is, you could be a 9 wing 8, you could be a 9 wing 1, you could be a 6 wing 5, a 6 wing 7, you know? And just some more variations. Also, this is a pretty cool, another like subtype, I guess is what they call it, of every like core type. So there are 3 different, they call them instinctual variants. You could be self-preservation, which is being preoccupied with getting and maintaining physical safety and comfort. So it's kind of like self-first sort of preoccupation. So it's a variant of the type. So all the types, you could be a self-preservation version of your type, or you could be a social type variant, which is being preoccupied with being accepted and necessary in your world. So it's very much being involved and participating in your social network and providing value to the people group or the tribe that you're in a sense. That being like the primary variant focus. Or you could be sexual, or it's also called one-to-one. People with the sexual variant are on a constant search for connection with other people, and they are attracted to just like intense experiences. So just any form of intensity or like connection, one-on-one connection, just to really feel like deeply connected to something, or just intense experiences. It could be like riding roller coasters, just like that kind of that need for intensity is the sexual one-to-one variant. So that's another aspect that is tracked. So again, just as an example, I personally am a 2 wing 3 sexual variant with probably you could have like 1 and then a secondary. I think I am probably sexual self-preservation probably, and then maybe social last. Yeah. But yeah, so that's just kind of how that works. Any given type, you could be your core type, and then your variant, and then also what wing you lean towards. And let's see. So another thing I'm going to show on this image here. So this is kind of combining a lot of the things into one image here. So we've got the names of the types. People use different words to describe them, but a lot of these words kind of help to paint the picture of the core of these types. But yeah, so we got our types. We've got the 3 centers, the triads, the body, heart, and the head. And then the new thing I want to introduce here is called the growth lines. You've got the growth and stress lines. So these arrows kind of show how types are interrelated. And I'm going to keep exploring 2 just because I'm most aware of it. But as a type 2, as you can see, it is interrelated to type 4. There's an arrow going from 2 to 4, and then there's an arrow going from 2 to 8. So under stress, as a type 2, when I'm stressed out, I can very well look like a type 8. And it's more so like type 8 in of itself is a little different than type 2 going to 8 under stress. You wind up exhibiting kind of the negative traits of type 8, which I can be very like super like angry, explosive. I can be like hard on setting boundaries and like, yeah, like kind of like fighting, really, if you think about it. Like the negative sides of type 8 is just always fighting and challenging and pushing. And so in a state of stress, I could be that way. It's like 2 going to the negatives of 8. But in a positive, healthy state, when type 2 is in a healthy place and is not just kind of spiraling on the like type 2 things, when they're starting to become more healthy, they can go towards the individualist, type 4, the artist, the romantic, and kind of have a sense of individuality and not just be so wrapped up in helping other people, but be more in touch with their own identity and just like their creativity and like self-expression and stuff in a healthier place. Whenever type 2 is in a growth state, they go to the positive traits of type 4. So yeah, so just kind of take this in just to see that these types are interrelated. The types have neighbors that, you know, would be wings of the types. And then moving towards positive traits when on a growth path, moving towards the negative traits of another type. So yeah, that is the arrow lines. And yeah, so from there, I'm going to kind of explore a few more things about the types, just more aspects. So think of these few things. There's like a core need of each type. There's like a vice and a virtue. So kind of a core sin and then a core, like what in moving to health and coming out of that, in a place of like your best self, what you really could exhibit the most, you know? So it's not that your type is bad. It's just our types can grow. And in growth, we can move, like my type, it's moving out of pride, being like, I don't need help, but I'm helping everybody else, but I don't have any needs, like the pride of not asking for help or, yeah. And then moving more into humility as the virtue. But yeah, each type has a core fear, they have a core desire, they have a childhood message that they believed about themselves, and then they also have basically the lost childhood message of what they needed to hear. And it's not so much that somebody wasn't, like a parent wasn't saying it to them. It's just maybe the other one took root so much that they kind of missed believing the true thing about themselves and more so believe the other one, which has shaped the Enneagram pattern. So a way to kind of find your core type can be in reading through like these various childhood messages and noticing like, man, that one really hits home. Or my core issue is I am dealing with shame, or I'm dealing with fear, or I'm dealing with anger. You kind of find what triad you're in. But yeah, so I'm going to go over these childhood messages because I think they really, really tell like that core thing. When you find your core type, it's going to be in some of this where you're going to be like, that's me, man. So I'm going to go through the childhood messages of type 1 through 9. It's just a simple sentence. So type 1, it's not okay to make mistakes, which makes them become a perfectionist, right? Type 2, it's not okay to have your own needs. Type 3, it's not okay to have my own feelings and identity. Type 4, it's not okay to be too functional or too happy. Type 5, it's not okay to be comfortable in the world. Type 6, it's not okay to trust yourself. Type 7, it's not okay to depend on anyone for anything. Type 8, it's not okay to be vulnerable or to trust anyone. Type 9, it's not okay to assert yourself. And then the lost childhood message that each one of those types needed to hear and either just didn't believe because they already had locked on to the other thing. Type 1, you are good. Type 2, you are wanted. Type 3, you are loved for yourself. Type 4, you are seen for who you are. Type 5, your needs are not a problem. Type 6, you are safe. Type 7, you will be taken care of. Type 8, you will not be betrayed. Type 9, your presence matters. So all of that hits our hearts in a different way, but there's like a core one that is needed for us to come more into alignment with and to start believing about ourselves, which will help us come into more of a healthier state to embrace our strengths within our Enneagram type and heal from the lie that we chose to believe as a coping mechanism, or what life taught us, what our upbringing taught us, what was kind of missing in our nurturing, or just, yeah. It could be as simple as like, I was bullied and this is what I started to believe about myself, which led to me somewhat being in this, like how I was going to deal with that. Like, I'm never going to feel that way again. Therefore, I'm going to always be strong. I'm never going to be weak again. I'm never going to be vulnerable again. And you want to be in a type 8, you know, where you're challenging everything and you fear being betrayed, or, yeah. So, another, let's see. Let's go over, I don't want to make this video too long, but I like to paint these pictures. So let's do this. I'm going to just read through this brief little descriptions of the 9 types with their name and let you get a general picture of the 9 types. And then from there, in later videos, I'll go more in depth on the individual types. But starting out, real quick, before I do that, I want to show you in the Enneagram book. This book, here we go. Again, as I've said before, my hair. I highly recommend this book. Other books do this in their own way too, but at the start of each type, let's see. No, wait, not at the start. There's a checklist at the end of each chapter of all of these like traits, kind of like these I am statements almost, that it's like, do you identify with this? There's a checklist for each type to help you kind of identify your type. Real quick, I'm going to go grab another book that's really good for this too. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So, little camera issue. So this is another great book, The Road Back to You. It similarly has that in each, at each type, there's a checklist, what it's like to be a 1, all of these like statements that'll help you discover your type. If you identify with this prominently, all the different types. But yeah, this is another great book. Ian Morgan Cron. So yeah. All right, so back to, I'm going to read general quick description of all of them. And I guess we'll kind of wrap this particular video up. So type 1, the reformer. They have a need to be perfect. Their core sin is anger. And as they move towards health, it can become serenity. They are repressing anger, or more so suppressing it. It's coming out as just being critical, or being really, they're controlling it. They have a fear of being bad or corrupt. Their desire is to have integrity. that desire disintegrates into critical perfectionism. It's not okay to make mistakes, is what they believed. And the message that they need to know is that they are good. Type 2 is the helper. They have the need to be needed. The core sin is pride. The virtue is humility. Their fear is being unworthy. Their greatest desire is just to be loved as they are. But that disintegrates into the need to be needed. And they believe it's not okay to have my own needs. And the lost childhood message is you are loved. Type 3 is the achiever. It's the need to succeed. Their core sin is self-deceit. They over-identify with the image. They believe that's who they are. They've deceived themselves. And the virtue is veracity. That is a word I kind of want to define, actually. Let's translate that. Not translate. Look up. There we go. Honesty. Veracity is honesty or truthfulness. It's a facet of moral character that, honesty. To not self-deceit, but honesty. Fear of being worthless is their fear or without inherent value. Their desire is to be valuable. It disintegrates into chasing after success. Their childhood message is it's not okay to have my own feelings and identity. Type 4 is the individualist. They have the need to be special. Their core sin is envy. And here's another word I don't know. Let's see. Equanimity. Calmness, composure, level-headedness, self-control, even temperateness. Yeah, that is their virtue. Their fear is being without identity or personal significance. Their desires to be oneself, which deteriorates is the word, deteriorates into self-indulgence. And they believe it's not okay to be too functional or too happy. And the childhood message that they needed is you are seen for who you are. Type 5 is the investigator. They have the need to perceive, and their root sin is avarice or greed, kind of like stinginess of their time, of themselves, of their resources, whatever. Yeah. And their virtue is non-attachment. They have a fear of being useless, incapable, or incompetent. Their desire is to be competent, and that deteriorates into useless specialization, just specializing in lots of stuff, becoming super knowledgeable. They believe it's not okay to be comfortable in the world, and the missing childhood message is your needs are not a problem. Type 6 is the loyalist. They have the need for security. Their root sin is fear itself, and their virtue is courage. They have a fear of being without support or guidance. Their desire is to be secure. That deteriorates into an attachment to their beliefs, like an over-attachment to their beliefs. It's not okay to trust yourself is their message that they got. And the missing message is that you are safe. Type 7 is the enthusiast. They have the need to avoid pain. So they run to pleasure, avoid pain. Their root sin is gluttony. A gluttony for just more, not being satisfied. And the virtue is sobriety. Their fear is being deprived or trapped in pain. Their desire is to be happy. That deteriorates into frenetic escapism. Childhood message was, it's not okay to depend on anyone for anything. And the message that they needed is that you will be taken care of. Type 8 is the challenger. They have the need to be against, to challenge, to push against things. Their core sin is lust, just a lust for experiences, lust for intensity, lust for, it's different than gluttony, but yeah, it's just like a thirst for intensity in a way. Yeah. And their virtue is innocence. They have the fear of being harmed or controlled by others. Their desires to protect themselves, that deteriorates into constant fighting, kind of in its worst state. The childhood message is it's not okay to be vulnerable or to trust anyone. And the childhood message that they needed, that they missed, is you will not be betrayed. And lastly, type 9, the peacemaker, their need is to avoid. Their root sin is sloth, just kind of like going to sleep, being numb to themselves, to their own desires. And their virtue is right action. And their fear is of losing connection, of fragmentation. Their desires to be at peace, and it deteriorates. I keep saying disintegrates, but deteriorates into stubborn neglectfulness. And the childhood message that they believed is it's not okay to assert yourself. And the missing message is that their presence matters. So yeah, that is the 9 types. There's so much more on this as you get more into the individual types. But yeah, so again, I highly recommend this book. Let me get this out of my way here. So this book right here, as well as the Enneagram Guide to Waking Up, is a really good one. And yeah, so let's see if there's anything else I would add to this. In general, I think I kind of covered the main points. Yeah, it's a really good thing to explore, to see what you're unconsciously chasing, what you're unconsciously running from, and to find that healthy place in loving who you are and starting to believe that you already have what you're trying to seek. And so you can start to do things from a different place. And yeah, so I hope that this has been helpful to you in getting a picture of what the Enneagram is, and kind of help you have vision to see how this could be helpful for your life, or can help you to understand the people around you, especially in relationships with your spouse or family members, just seeing that each person is probably coming from a different place, and they're managing their trauma, or they're managing protecting themselves, they're managing their identity, who they are, their worth, their value in their own way, and protecting themselves and stuff. And everyone could be coming from a very different place. And then also just to help each other overcome and be in more of a loving, self-understanding place, that we can unplug from these autopilot things that we could be in, and yeah, so I really love the Enneagram. It's very helpful to me, just in my own life, but also this is something I want to help other people with, to discover their Enneagram, to see the things that are holding them back, so that they can grow and become more in touch with their truer self, and be able to disconnect from coping mechanisms, to be more at a state of rest within their own soul, and just walk out their life path, not defined by their Enneagram type anymore. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, like the video, and if you want to see more content like this on the Enneagram, I also talk about objective personality, Myers-Briggs on this channel, and I will just be exploring overcoming trauma. And I'm also available for coaching if you'd like to book a session with me. I've got a link in the description below to my website, Typology Corner. You can go there and book a session for just coaching, relationship coaching, to discover your Enneagram type, Myers-Briggs. Yeah, just anything like that. If you'd like to chat, you can book time with me, and yeah, we can talk. So again, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for supporting the channel. And I pray you have a blessed day, and just continue to grow and learn about yourself, understand what makes you tick, and also just, yeah, how to overcome things from your past and just continue to evolve and become more your truer and fuller self. So yeah, that's my wish for you. And again, thank you for watching, and have a blessed day. Till next time.